Michael Jordan was flipping through his old high school yearbook with his son Marcus when he stopped at a photo that made his heart skip a beat. There she was, Jessica Miller, the girl who had rejected him in front of the entire cafeteria. "Dad, who's that?" Marcus asked. Michael had never told anyone about that day, but what he discovered about Jessica's life now would completely change how he thought about winning and losing. This isn't just a story about teenage rejection. It's about what happens when the people who say no to us end up teaching us the most important lessons about life. "Hey Marcus, check this out," Michael called to his 19-year-old son on a quiet Sunday afternoon. Rain was hitting the windows of his Charlotte mansion as he cleaned out old boxes. Marcus jogged over, still bouncing a basketball. "What's up, Dad?" "My senior yearbook. Want to see how dorky your old man looked?" They sat on the leather couch, and Michael flipped past the sports pages until he hit the cheerleading section. And there she was, Jessica Miller, front row center, perfect smile, blonde hair, blue and gold uniform, the girl who'd made his 17-year-old heart race. Michael's finger traced the photo edge. For a second, he was that awkward teenager again. "Dad, who is she?" Marcus noticed how quiet his father had gotten. "Jessica Miller. Someone I knew back then." "Knew how? Like you dated her?" Michael almost laughed. "Nah, son, definitely not." "What happened?" Michael stared at the photo. He'd never told this story to anyone, not his ex-wife, not his closest friends, nobody. But something about this moment made him want to share it. "I asked her out. She said no." Marcus looked shocked. "She rejected Michael Jordan?" "Marcus, I wasn't Michael Jordan then. I was just Mike. Some skinny kid who got cut from varsity as a sophomore." "Tell me what happened." March 1981. 17-year-old Michael had been working up courage for weeks to talk to Jessica Miller. She was everything he wasn't: popular, confident, dating the star quarterback Tommy Patterson. She seemed to glide through high school, while Michael was still figuring out how to fit in. That Tuesday at lunch, Michael made his move. He walked across the cafeteria, heart pounding. Jessica was sitting with her usual crew, cheerleaders, basketball players, the cool kids. "Hey, Jessica," he said, voice cracking. She looked up surprised. "Oh, hi, Mike. There's a dance next Friday? Want to go with me?" The whole table went silent. Every eye was on him. Jessica's cheeks turned pink as she glanced at her friends. "That's really sweet," she said carefully, "but I'm already going with Tommy." Michael felt his face burn. "Oh, right, of course. Maybe some other time," she added, though they both knew there wouldn't be one. He nodded and walked away, feeling like everyone was watching his humiliation. "Ouch," Marcus said when Michael finished. "That had to hurt." "It did, but you know what? It taught me something." "What's that?" "That rejection isn't the end of your story. It's just one chapter." Marcus studied the yearbook photo again. "So what happened to her? Did you ever see her after that?" "That's the thing," Michael said. "I got so focused on basketball, then college, then the NBA. I never looked back." "But you're thinking about it now." "Yeah, I am." "Why?" Michael was quiet. "I guess I'm finally old enough to wonder about all the people from my past. What happened to them? How did life treat them?" Marcus grinned. "Dad, you're Michael Jordan. You could probably find out pretty easily." "You think I should?" "I think you're already going to do it whether I say yes or no." Michael laughed. His son knew him too well. That night, Michael sat at his laptop, staring at a Google search bar with Jessica Miller's name typed in. Finally, he hit enter. Dozens of results popped up, but none seemed to match his cheerleader. He tried North Carolina, then Laney High School, then 1981. After an hour of digging, he found something that made his stomach drop. A small newspaper article from 6 months earlier, local teacher honored for dedication to special needs students. Jessica Miller Thompson was recognized for 20 years of service to students with developmental disabilities. The 1981 Laney High graduate has dedicated her career to ensuring every child gets the education they deserve. "Jessica doesn't just teach these kids," said Principal Rodriguez. "She loves them like her own. She stays late, comes in weekends, fights for what they need." Miller Thompson was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2015 but continues teaching despite her condition getting worse. "These kids give me more than I could ever give them," she said. Michael stared at the screen. Multiple sclerosis. The words hit him like a punch. He clicked the photo. There she was, older, gray in her blonde hair, using a walking cane. But that same smile from the yearbook, standing in a classroom full of special needs kids who were all beaming with joy. But what Michael found next would completely shock him. Michael spent the next 2 hours researching everything about Jessica Miller Thompson. She'd married her college sweetheart David in 1985. David died in a car crash in 2003, leaving Jessica to raise 2 kids alone. She'd been teaching special needs children for over 20 years, often using her own money for classroom supplies. Her multiple sclerosis had gotten so bad she needed help walking, but she refused disability leave. She'd sold her house to pay for her kids' college and now lived in a tiny apartment near the school. But here's what broke Michael's heart. Pine Valley Elementary's special education program was about to be shut down due to budget cuts. By midnight, Michael was sitting in his trophy-filled office thinking about a woman who'd spent her life helping forgotten kids while society forgot about her. The girl who rejected him had become exactly the kind of person he most respected, but what Michael decided to do next would shock everyone. The next morning, Michael called his assistant Patricia. "I need you to make some calls, quietly. I want everything about Pine Valley Elementary in Wilmington. Budget, programs, needs." "Of course, Mr. Jordan. What's this about?" "An old friend, someone I should have stayed in touch with." By afternoon, Patricia had the full story. Pine Valley was facing severe cuts. Jessica's special education program was getting eliminated at year's end. 23 disabled kids would be crammed into overcrowded programs elsewhere. The report showed Jessica had been fighting the cuts for months. School board meetings, letters to politicians, organizing parents. She was waging a one-woman war, and she was losing. Michael read the numbers. The program needed $180,000 annually. That was less than what he spent on a single business dinner. But this wasn't about money. This was about something way more important. Michael decided against calling Jessica directly. Instead, he reached out to Principal Rodriguez. "This is Michael Jordan. I understand you have a teacher named Jessica Miller Thompson." Long pause. "The Michael Jordan?" "Yes, ma'am. Jessica and I went to high school together. I've been reading about your budget situation. Mr. Jordan, this is..." "Wow. Yes, Jessica is our most dedicated teacher. We're heartbroken about cutting her program." "What if you didn't have to?" Another pause. "I'm sorry? What if funding wasn't an issue? What would Jessica need to not just save her program, but make it the best in the state?" Principal Rodriguez's voice shook. "Mr. Jordan, are you saying..." "I'm saying Jessica was one of the most genuine people I knew in high school, and sounds like she still is. I'd like to help. She has no idea you're calling?" "No, ma'am. Can you set up a visit?" "I want to see her program before I commit to anything." "When?" "Tomorrow." Michael arrived at Pine Valley Elementary at 8 a.m., dressed in simple clothes. Principal Rodriguez met him at the entrance. "Jessica gets here at 6:30 every morning to prep," she said as they walked. "Says the extra time helps her students have better days." They stopped outside a classroom covered in colorful handprints and motivational quotes. Through the window, Michael saw Jessica working with a small group of kids. She moved carefully with her cane, but her energy was incredible. She was helping a boy with Down syndrome practice writing. Each letter he got right earned huge praise. "Beautiful work, Marcus," she said, and Michael's heart jumped at hearing his son's name. "You're getting so good." The boy threw his arms around Jessica in a spontaneous hug. She hugged back, her face lighting up with pure joy. "She learns all their names on day 1, Principal Rodriguez whispered. "Memorizes birthdays, favorite foods, fears, dreams, treats each one like the most important kid in the world." Michael watched Jessica move to help another student, a girl with autism working on a puzzle. Jessica knelt beside her, ignoring the obvious pain it caused. "Take your time, Sarah," Jessica said gently. "Look how the pieces fit together." When Sarah got a piece right, she clapped excitedly. Jessica clapped right along, celebrating like it was the Olympics. But what Michael saw next would change everything. As Michael watched longer, he noticed Jessica was clearly in pain. She gripped her cane tighter when she thought nobody was looking. She sat whenever possible, moved slower as the morning went on. But she never stopped smiling, never stopped encouraging, never stopped believing in kids others had written off. After 30 minutes, Michael met with Principal Rodriguez in her office. "I want to fund the program," he said. "Not just this year, permanently. I want to endow it." Rodriguez's eyes filled with tears. "Mr. Jordan, I don't know what to say. Say yes, but I have conditions." "Of course. I want it expanded, more teachers, resources, students served. I want it to become a model other schools can copy." "That would be amazing. I also want Jessica to have access to the best medical care for her condition, whatever she needs. She'll never accept charity." "It's not charity. I'm creating a foundation for outstanding special education teachers. She'll be the first recipient." Rodriguez nodded. "One more thing. I want to tell her myself, but I want to do it right." 2 weeks later, Jessica got a confusing invitation. The school district letter said she'd been selected for the inaugural Excellence in Special Education Award from an anonymous donor. There'd be a ceremony at a fancy Charlotte hotel. Her students would be bussed in to perform a special program. Jessica almost didn't go. The MS had been rough that week, but her kids were so excited about their performance that she couldn't disappoint them. At the ceremony, Jessica sat surrounded by her 23 students and their families. She wore her best dress and had gotten her hair done, though she felt self-conscious about the cane. After speeches from education officials, Principal Rodriguez took the stage. "Today, we honor someone who's proven every child deserves a chance to shine," she said. "For 20 years, she's championed students others might overlook." Jessica shifted uncomfortably. She hated being the center of attention. "But first, we have a special guest, someone who knew our honoree before she became a teacher. Please welcome Michael Jordan." Jessica's breath caught as the most famous basketball player in the world walked onto the stage. Their eyes met across the ballroom. They weren't a billionaire and a small-town teacher anymore. They were just two kids from Laney High. "Hello, Jessica," Michael said into the microphone. "It's been a long time." "Most of you wonder how I know Jessica Miller Thompson," Michael said, looking right at her. "We went to high school together. And I need to tell you something important." The crowd was dead silent. "When I was 17, I asked Jessica to a dance. She said no." Nervous laughter rippled through the audience. Jessica felt her cheeks burn just like they had 40 years ago. "At the time, I thought that was the worst thing ever. I thought rejection meant failure." His voice got stronger. "But I was wrong. Sometimes people say no, not because you're not good enough, but because they're meant for something else, something bigger." Michael's eyes found Jessica's again. "Jessica said no to me because she was meant to say yes to something more important. She was meant to say yes to children who needed her, to students others might give up on." The room was completely quiet. "I got good at basketball. Jessica became something way more important. She became a hero." He gestured toward her students. "Look at these kids. They're here because Jessica never stopped believing in them. She fought for them when others wanted to quit." His voice grew emotional. "Jessica, you taught me 40 years ago that real victory isn't getting what you want. It's becoming who you're meant to be." Michael pulled out an envelope. "Which is why I'm here, not just to give you an award, but to make sure you can keep doing what you were meant to do." He opened it. "The Michael Jordan Foundation is establishing the Jessica Miller Thompson Center for Special Education Excellence, fully funded forever. Your program will never face cuts again." Jessica gasped. "But that's not all. We're expanding to serve 60 kids instead of 23, hiring more teachers, providing the best resources available." The crowd erupted, but Michael wasn't done. "And Jessica, you'll have access to the best medical care for your condition. You've spent 20 years taking care of others. Time someone took care of you." Jessica was crying now. "Most importantly, this center will be a model for schools nationwide. Your passion, your belief that every child matters, we're sharing that with the world." Later, in a quiet hotel corner, Michael and Jessica talked alone. "I still can't believe this is real," Jessica said, shaking her head. "Why, Michael, after all these years?" Michael was quiet, then said, "Do you remember what you told me that day in the cafeteria?" Jessica winced. "I'm so sorry about—" "No," Michael interrupted. "You said, Maybe some other time, remember? She nodded. I've been thinking about that. You didn't just reject me, you were kind about it. Even as a teenager, you cared about other people's feelings. He leaned forward. I spent 40 years focused on winning. Games, championships, business deals, but you spent 40 years focused on helping people who couldn't help themselves. Can I ask you something? Jessica said. Sure. Do you ever wonder how different things might have been if I'd said yes? Michael thought seriously. I used to, but now I know the truth. If you'd said yes, you might have become Jessica Jordan instead of Jessica Miller Thompson. You might have gotten caught up in my world instead of creating your own. Those 23 kids might have had a different teacher. Jessica smiled through tears. So my rejecting you was the best thing that happened? Your rejecting me was the best thing that happened to those kids, and maybe that's more important than any relationship we might have had. Today, the Jessica Miller Thompson model is used in over 200 schools across 15 states. Thousands of kids who might have been written off are thriving. Jessica still teaches, now training other educators and advocating for special needs children nationwide. Michael's foundation expanded the program internationally, with centers opening worldwide. But the most important lesson is what their story teaches about rejection and purpose. Sometimes, people who say no aren't closing doors. They're opening windows to something better. Sometimes the greatest gift someone gives us is forcing us to become who we were meant to be. The cheerleader who rejected Michael Jordan became something more important than a high school date. She became a champion for kids who needed champions. And the basketball player who got rejected learned that the most important victories happen in quiet classrooms, with children whose names won't appear in record books, but whose lives matter just as much as any championship. That's what happens when we see rejection not as an ending, but as the beginning of something we never knew we needed. If this story moved you, remember that everyone in your life has a purpose, even the people who say no. Sometimes they're protecting something more important. Sometimes they're meant for something bigger. And sometimes, years later, you get to be part of that bigger something.